On August 3rd, the train station in Moscow collapsed. Holy shit, what the fuck? Whoa! Look, the railway station is on fire. The tracks have been blown up. People in Moscow are panicking. Fuck, what am I supposed to do? This is fucked. The railway is burning. A freight train is in flames. Hundreds of passengers have been evacuated. All movement has stopped. We're leaving.
We're screwed.
Moscow residents report the roof collapsed after a powerful explosion. The tracks are burning. The station is engulfed in smoke. Look! That's it. Basically, this is a disaster. This is a total fuck. Trains have stopped all over the country. This isn't just a blow to the capital. This is a blow to Russia's logistics. The first car. We're screwed. How did the passengers get out? And how are they going to clear it out? There it is, damn it.
Airports are in chaos.
Aeroflot is paralyzed. Servers are destroyed. Flights are cancelled. Meanwhile, Russia is restricting gasoline export. And this is just the beginning. The economy is going into a tailspin. The country is burning. Let's discuss all this with the President of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caucasus, personal enemy of Putin and Kadyrov, Ruslan Kutayev.
Good afternoon, Dasha. Greetings to you.
Ruslan Kamdievich, railways are under attack. In the Moscow and Rostov regions, drones attacked 5 regions at once. The drone is flying so close. Mom! Mom! There's a fire at the railway station in Salsk. A freight train is burning. The bridge has been blown up. The bridge has been blown up. The passenger train was urgently evacuated. We are blowing up trains, stations, and railway junctions. Look, the railway station is on fire. Here it is, the Severnaya power station. We've arrived. Aviation is paralyzed. A hacker attack has crashed Aeroflot's IT infrastructure. 7,000 servers have been destroyed. Hundreds of flights cancelled. The FSB is holding a meeting because the losses exceed $50 million. Passengers in Moscow are trapped. Sheremetyevo, Pulkovo, and Zhukovsky airports are paralyzed. Panic, crush, telegram crash. The FSB is cutting off communications and the internet in many regions of Russia. We are entering a phase of total pressure. The railway is on the rails.
Fuck.
Across the sky. Across the seas. Ruslan Kamdievich, what do you say?
Amazing events. It was especially beautiful when the key railway station in Salsk-Rostov region was destroyed. I know those places very well. There's such heavy traffic there. Everything coming from the Urals, from Siberia, all the support for the war passes through there. And suddenly they destroy exactly this part of the railway. These are huge disruptions. This is simply an immeasurable loss of support for the war, for various things. We know that certain regions and military units, they don't just refuel in Rostov, for example, they send tankers with fuel from their own regions. And suddenly that fuel is stuck. And now it has been reported that Ukrainian intelligence is actively bombing Russian railway trains with their advanced drones, and as a result, everything is burning fiercely there too, causing significant damage and disruption. It's an amazing approach. Absolutely the right thing to do. It should have been done a long time ago, but at least now it's happening. So the entire development effort, let's say, the comprehensive support provided for the front lines, all of that crucial infrastructure and assistance is currently being systematically destroyed. As for Aeroflot, the response to this situation is truly incredible work. They completely destroyed just within the sophisticated Aeroflot recovery system itself, specifically in this complex electronic Aeroflot system, a staggering $50 million. This represents a significant financial loss. And they say this will drag on for a very long time. This means disruptions. This means flight delays. Russia is a huge country. And if Aeroflot stops, if planes stop flying, then in fact, a huge part of Russia, it's as if it no longer feels like a unified part of Russia, connecting it together. It falls away. And Moscow's sovereignty over this territory also disappears. Even from a political standpoint, I'm not even talking about the economic aspect. This is a tremendous blow. Logistics have been destroyed and are being systematically destroyed. And so this work that's being done regarding airplanes and passengers, yes, passengers' discomfort. Well, that's right. There's no reason. This criminal government needs to be removed, and people shouldn't be flying off somewhere to relax and, excuse me, have fun. And meanwhile, Ukrainians are being killed and Ukrainian cities are being destroyed. No, this is a profound discomfort now, and they should truly experience what the resilient people of Ukraine are going through every single day, facing immense challenges and hardships. Or what? So they are acting correctly, clearly, and consistently, and this can only be welcomed.
Ruslan Kamdievich, but all this is happening against the backdrop of blocked spare parts supplies and the refusal to service airplanes. We see planes falling apart, engines failing, and the FSB holding meetings with the Minister of Transport, with the ministry, and then, after that, Putin summons them for a dressing down. Well, this is a very serious problem if the FSB is already getting involved.
Of course, it's a very serious problem. Of course, they can't do anything about it. As for engine manufacturing, when the Ukrainian company Motor Sich sided with Ukraine and stopped cooperating with Russia, Russia's aircraft production came to a halt because Ukraine was supplying the engines. They tried to make their own, but it was a complete failure. They simply cannot do anything at all. They are utterly incapable of any action. And even for the most ordinary standard bearings used in the railway system, specifically those incredibly robust and highly heat-resistant bearings that are designed to operate under extremely heavy loads and immense pressure, which were historically and reliably supplied by specialized manufacturers in Japan and the United States for their extensive railway networks. Even the People's Republic of China, despite its significant industrial capacity, does not possess the capability for such exceptionally high-quality, precision bearing production, it must be acknowledged. And so when they stop being, not to mention the airplanes that are crashing, it's truly a tragedy for the people who died. But now planes will crash more often because the aircraft are worn out, there are no spare parts, and engines are failing. And as for the extensive railway systems, simply the critical lack of essential bearings is currently stopping a very significant number of railway cars, both passenger and freight, from operating efficiently and effectively.
Military analysts claim that there wouldn't have been an aviation collapse if Russia had simply closed its airspace, since it is waging a full-scale war against Ukraine, and its airspace should be closed.
It is at war. But Putin will never do that, because for Putin that would be a sign of weakness, and so it's impossible. Ruslan Kamdievich, I've noticed that many regional governors are saying that the FSB is jamming communications, that Russian security services are jamming both communications and the internet, and that Russians need to get used to this, living without telegram, without communication, without the internet. So essentially, the country is turning into a concentration camp.
Without a doubt, they are already seriously discussing and hinting that they will ban WhatsApp as well. They want to completely cut people off from, let's say, alternative sources of information, completely isolate them. They've presented their own app, Max. First of all, hardly anyone, or at least very few people, will want to use only Max. And secondly, this Max app will be far from functioning the same way as other social networks do. And all of this, taken together, is bad news for the Kremlin and the FSB, because people have started consuming a different kind of informational product. And this is no longer the enthusiastic audience that used to cheer and ask for victory to reach Kyiv and Lviv. They have now very seriously encountered the problem that the Russian authorities, not just Putin, but perhaps primarily the FSB, are risking the lives of Russians without batting an eye. And they will continue to do so. On the railways, on airplanes, at train stations, anywhere, at sea and in the air, they will risk the lives of Russia and Russians. However, all of this is primarily done to meticulously avoid any potential image losses and to diligently preserve their inherent power and influence. That's precisely how they operate. You see, Dasha, they are fully aware that they have unequivocally lost. And now their primary objective is simply to patiently wait it out, to strategically position themselves and navigate towards a particular sort of favorable stream or a new, more advantageous direction, a well-defined track where they could somehow manage to maintain and preserve their existing power, all while retaining at least some discernible semblance of their former dignity and authority, even in the face of their significant defeat. Not a complete destruction or discrediting of their authority, but at least preserving some kind of face for the government. That's exactly what they're busy with. They couldn't care less about Russians. They couldn't care less about their deaths. We know what is happening at the front.
Ruslan Kamdievich, Trump gave Putin 10 days.
And Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has already officially made a statement that, most likely, Russia's war against Ukraine will end in the near future, or at least the acute phase. What do you attribute this to? Do you believe that Putin's ultimatum will actually be enforced? And what consequences will Russia face if it violates the 10-day deadline and does not cease fire? What is Trump prepared to do, and what consequences will there be for Russia and for Putin personally?
I think the first thing Trump will do, he is already a hostage. He has made it excessively clear, explicit, and defined, despite all his talkativeness, despite the fact that he often backtracks or disavows his own words. Now he himself has become a hostage to all his own statements. Even within his own party, they wouldn't understand. In Trump's administration, they wouldn't understand if he acted differently. I can even guess how this will play out. All his threats, these tariffs, in fact, the sanctions he talked about, these sanctions in the form of certain tariffs, he will increase them, but not in the context of trade relations between Russia and the US. There, it's only 3 billion. Here, the sanctions will be secondary sanctions specifically against China, India, Brazil, and Turkey. These are the countries that buy Russian oil and gas. I think these sanctions will actually be imposed. I don't think they will be enforced with the full severity that was prepared in the United States Congress, at least, despite the fact that Trump is not just offended by Putin anymore. He started to actually hate him a little because all of Trump's expectations were rejected, all his initiatives. He simply expected that Putin would meet him halfway. And now, right here, he's about to start acting tough. And all his toughness will come down to the fact that sanctions will be imposed, not the harshest sanctions, but still tough enough for Russia. The very fact that if these sanctions, as we say, these secondary sanctions against countries that buy oil and gas are imposed, that's already a blow, a very serious blow to Russia's already, as they say, collapsing economy, because there's nowhere else to go. We can see what's happening in Russia right now, what's going on in Russia. They're already killing people, even the Minister of Transport, the former governor of the Kursk region. Look at what's going on. The deputy speaker of the State Duma lashed out at the chairwoman of the Federation Council of the Russian Federation. What's the reason? And the reason is that now Putin is saying, I let you steal as much as you wanted. I corrupted you. Today the country needs money. Come on, share the money. And no one wants to share. After all, this shocking and brutal sacrificial killing of the Minister of Transport was a stark and undeniable reminder to all ministers and provincial governors across the land. If you do not promptly and generously contribute essential funds to support the imperial army, then the very same dire and unfortunate fate will undoubtedly befall you as well. And that's why the conflict is escalating now. It's already reached the highest level. If there is a conflict at the level of the deputy chairman of the State Duma and the chairman of the Federation Council, one that is brought out into the open and discussed by the investigative committee, this is the peak. This is already a crisis of political power in the Russian Federation.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
The death of Ramzan Kadyrov. An emergency meeting in the Kremlin. The FSB is in a panic. For several days now, Ramzan Kadyrov has disappeared from the radar. There isn't a single live video, only photoshopped pictures, taken back in the spring, all in jackets, most likely in March. According to leaks, Kadyrov tried to commit suicide in Turkey, to drown himself in Bodrum. In Sevastopol, they are hanging up his portraits as if it's already a farewell. And in Grozny, there is silence. Has Kadyrov died, or are they just hiding him to transfer the power structure? Who is the successor? What is happening inside Chechnya? And why is the FSB assembling emergency teams in the Kremlin under the pretense of regional coordination?
Indeed, there was information coming from Turkey. Naturally, I have my own reliable sources within Turkey, and from those very credible sources, I truly did learn and confirm that Kadyrov indeed flew directly to Bodrum. He was definitely there enjoying a well-deserved vacation in that beautiful coastal town. And according to the information I have, while he was swimming, he started feeling unwell, an ambulance was called, he was taken away, and so on. And at this point, any version could be equally plausible. I want to talk about another exclusive piece of information that I received a few days ago. I was visiting a friend of mine and someone arrived to see him from Grozny or Moscow. I'm not exactly sure which. So as we were talking, well, let's just say the source is trustworthy. He said that indeed Kadyrov is in a very serious condition. And the most important, the key thing I heard was this. There have been various theories about his illness. Some say he was poisoned and that it was the FSB who poisoned him. And that despite the intervention of various doctors from European to Middle Eastern, the source of the damage, the effect of this poison or toxic substance, it's simply impossible to stop this decomposition in his body, and that he is in a serious condition. And from time to time, some kind of medical intervention straightens him out so that he can walk. We can see that. I observe very closely myself. His last official appearance was recorded a few days ago when he was in Grozny, meeting people on the streets of Grozny, on Aslanbek Sheripov Street, if I remember correctly, where he was talking with women. Well, it was clear that the man is ill, he could barely move. And indeed, his illness, his ailment is overcoming him. Once again, I'm not insisting on any particular version. Some say it's the pancreas, others say his kidneys have been replaced. Still others say it's poisoning. Personally, I tend to believe that poisoning is, after all, Moscow's driving force. They get rid of all those who are inconvenient precisely through poisoning. And it's well known to everyone that the FSB and Kadyrov have long been in quite a serious confrontation. They are doing everything they can to neutralize him. They are doing everything they can to weaken Putin, because in fact, Kadyrov and the Kadyrovites are a very significant force in protecting Putin. And all of this together, in principle, may indicate that Kadyrov's health or lack thereof is being targeted, and there are active forces here that will do everything possible to neutralize him.
Ramzan Kamitovich, you've just shared some very exclusive information. So we can assume that if the Russian security services eliminated Kadyrov by poisoning him, they are also preparing for the elimination of Putin. In other words, are they, so to speak, weakening the protective ring around the country's top leader?
Absolutely right. First and foremost, this is aimed at weakening Putin. Here, unlike Prigozhin or say others like Kolokoltsev or Bastrikin, they basically switched sides to the FSB. And Putin was left with only two forces he relied on, the National Guard under Zolotov and Kadyrov. And it should be said very clearly that Putin relied even more on Kadyrov and the Kadyrovites than on Zolotov. And this was the force that needed to be neutralized. And from this perspective, in recent years, the FSB's active behavior was directed toward this. We witnessed how much material discrediting Kadyrov was released, which later turned out to be fake and did not correspond to reality. Putin barely had time to defend Kadyrov. And why is that? Because Putin wasn't so much worried about Kadyrov or standing up for him, but rather for himself, because it was his own protection. And that's why I think we can quite reasonably assume here that the force opposing Kadyrov will do everything possible to neutralize him, to kill him, to pursue him in any way. And so any expectations here are impossible. Any ending to this story is possible and at any time.
Ramzan Kamitovich, what does it mean that the FSB has gone against Putin himself? Is that really the case? And what does that mean then?
Many individuals attempt to actively avoid this situation, to completely run away from it, but it truly is the undeniable case. I am absolutely and firmly convinced because Vladimir Putin is now, in essence, a hostage of the war he started in Ukraine. He has entered such a phase that now, if he stops the war, he will have to tell Russians, his, let's say, core electorate, some percentage, those suffering from the most severe form of fascism, racism, he will have to tell these people that he did not achieve his goal, Akela missed. In that case, the leader needs to be replaced with another. In this regard, Putin is entangled. He can't do anything, and the FSB can't either. The FSB is not only well represented in Russian power structures, they are the cementing element of all components of Russian authority. Why? Because this personnel policy was carried out exclusively with the approval and recommendation of the FSB of Russia when they were together, as they say, on the same team and trusted each other. And now consider the children of prominent figures like Patrushev, Ivanov, and Bortnikov. Indeed, all of them, you could take anyone, even Chemezov, or truly whoever you might name, they are, without exception, Individuals who have thoroughly gone through the rigorous and demanding training of the FSB school. Their children have grown up. Some of them are already heading ministries or are deputy prime ministers, like Petrushev's son, or leading agencies and major corporations, serious corporations at that, financial, gas, oil, and so on. And now it has turned out that the prospects, the future of these descendants, these children of FSB generals, are tied to Putin's actions. It would be much better and easier for them to hand over Putin no matter how. They could shoot him, claim that Putin left a note and shot himself, and then blame everything on him. There are 1,000 different scenarios here. And again, we come back to the fact that regarding Kadyrov, what is being done to weaken Putin is precisely to get one step closer to Putin in order to neutralize him, or if you want, to eliminate him. This is how the issue stands now in the Russian state. Ruslan Kamitovich, who could be Ramzan Kadyrov's successor in that case? His son, who has already been introduced to Putin and who is already officially married? No, I don't think so. I'm even convinced that in this situation, when there are active events all over Russia related to the war in Ukraine, they can't put that boy in charge. Although there is another option here. The thing is, if the FSB wants to take full control, and Chechnya is no longer governed autonomously by Kadyrov, but instead is run directly by the FSB. And then, let's say, they could appoint one of their own FSB people to oversee this boy, and in that case, the situation would develop in a completely different way. Well, I don't think they'll go down that path, because the people Kadyrov relies on are already extremely powerful groups, extremely powerful. They have gained strength. They haven't just gained strength. These are generals, active generals, people with enormous wealth, people who have built extensive connections. And now, if the FSB simply tries to somehow get rid of them, it won't work to control things. They will have to be taken into account. At the very least, their interests will have to be respected. It's hard to say right now. I'm not saying that someone like Delimkanov or Daudov will be replaced instead of Kadyrov. That too, I believe, would be a conflict. Why? These are equal factions. If one faction is put in charge, say, of governing the Chechen Republic, it creates a conflict with the other two factions that had equal power. And in this situation, it's very hard to judge right now. And here, the only thing, this is important, Dasha, for our viewers to hear. Here, it won't be Putin making the decision. If Putin were the one making the decisions unilaterally, then Ramzan Kadyrov's uncle, Magomed, would have been put in charge of the Chechen Republic. Why? Because to preserve those resources, huge billion-dollar resources, to maintain and manage them, it has to be someone from the close family. The boy, no, I think he's just too much of a boy. We remember when Ramzan Kadyrov came to power, they changed the Chechen constitution because he was too young by age. I think the requirement was 35 years old, and he was younger than that. They had to change the constitution to suit him. Well, excuse me, when someone is 30 years old, they change the constitution for him. And when a boy is 17 years old, these are completely incomparable things that don't fit even into the criminal Russian logic. And that's why there will be other options here. Dear audience, please write in the comments what you think might happen after the death of Ramzan Kadyrov. Does this mean that the FSB will go against Putin? Putin's days are numbered. There will be a military or forceful coup. Who could be put in Putin's place? Who could be put in Kadyrov's place? In the comments, let us know where you're watching from, share your location, and leave a few kind words in support of our duo and Ruslan Kutayev. Ruslan Kamitovich, now the most important question. Could Kadyrov's death create a zone of turbulence in various republics? This is very important. And could it trigger the fragmentation of Russia? No. Here, it's important to clearly understand Kadyrov and his influence on neighboring republics. Some experts without any real knowledge have said foolish things about this. No, Kadyrov has never tried to control or influence neighboring regions. Absolutely. He was satisfied with what he had. And secondly, if the situation in the Chechen Republic itself changes, it won't affect the neighboring regions, but it will impact the Chechen Republic itself, the internal balance, and the behavior of the population. Right now, despite all their hatred toward Kadyrov, the FSB understands that the protest segment of the population in the Chechen Republic is enormous. if they try to take any action, any kind of military operation or pursuit, for example. In any case, among these three groups, if any group finds itself on the side opposing the FSB, then the territory of the Chechen Republic, the overwhelming majority of the population, will support anyone who goes against the Russian FSB. And that would be a completely new situation for the Chechen Republic itself. This is the process that will influence the neighboring regions, not just Kadyrov's death or a change of power. No. If there are any significant military actions directly related to encroaching upon these three fundamental pillars that Kadyrov has historically relied upon and continues to rely upon for his power and influence. If this provokes any actions within the Chechen Republic itself, the population, which until now has remained in a kind of neutral position, waiting for Chechen forces, Ichkerian forces, in order to defend independence. But if suddenly the FSB starts to act actively there, and some force, whether it's Delimkhanov, Dautov, or someone else, provokes some actions against the FSB, they will be supported, they will be actively supported. And then it will be a very serious confrontation, especially with Russia lacking strength. It will be a serious confrontation.
Ruslan Kamdic, we are coming to the most important question. If the FSB and Russian special services are already betting on the fall of Putin's regime, does that mean the FSB has already developed a successor plan? That's the question. And who could be this successor, this new Putin? Because as we understand in Russia, it is the FSB that installs the president.
I think this is already known, at least within FSB circles. Let's say, for the FSB supporters, it will most likely be Patrushev's son, who is currently Deputy Prime Minister. He was the Minister of Agriculture, and there was a certain arrangement that Patrushev Sr. would leave his post as Secretary of the Security Council to become an advisor, and his son would be promoted and appointed to a higher position. After all, Patrushev and the FSB have placed all their bets precisely on his son in order to retain political power. I don't see any other candidates today who could claim to be successors to political power. It must be said this is a single power. Despite all the competitiveness and internal conflicts, this is a power structure they have organized. If anyone is to be the successor to this power, it can only be Patrushev's son. Why not someone else? Well, for example, the governor of the Tula region. No, he can't, because that would no longer be Putin's choice. If it were Putin's choice, the situation would be different. But when Putin is neutralized and someone else comes in, it will be a temporary government. I don't think the father, most likely the bet will be placed on Patrushev's son.
Dear audience, right now, together with Ruslan Kutayev, we are discussing the complete paralysis of the skies, railways, and aviation in Russia, because the attacks will continue, and the consequences for Putin and the economy. Please like this video. Write a few kind words in the comments to support Ukraine, the armed forces of Ukraine, and our duo with the President of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caucasus, Ruslan Kutayev. Ruslan Kamdievich and I meet every week to discuss important and current events. Ruslan Kamdievich, thank you. And as always, see you next week.
All the best, Dasha. All the best to you, dear viewers. I support Dasha. I urge you. Let's reach 1 million. But when we need to act quickly, dear viewers.